Want to talk about a point that I've made many times in my YouTube videos, and that is that fundamentalism is not a belief system. It's an orientation that one can hold with respect to virtually any belief system. So, yes, there are Christian fundamentalists, and the term fundamentalism originated from a movement in the teens of the 20th century when there was an oil man named Lyman Stewart who paid for the production of a collection of 12 pamphlets called the Fundamentals, which were intended to reiterate conservative Christian doctrine as they understood it over against the liberalization of sort of mainline Protestantism in North America. That launched the fundamentalist movement into the 1920s and an establishment of new institutions like Bible colleges that were pulling fundamentalist students out of public university divinity schools into their own private institutions. So rather than go to Princeton Seminary or Yale Divinity School or something, you would go to the Bible College at Bible Institute of Los Angeles, Biola University today, for example, or within Alberta, where I live, there was Prairie Bible College. It was established at this time, I think in the 1930s, and so you had that whole movement, and that's where the term fundamentalism comes from. But fundamentalism is not simply some aspect of Christianity, because you can also have Muslim fundamentalism, and you can have not just religious fundamentalisms, but non-religious fundamentalisms as well. Anybody can approach their belief system with a fundamentalist orientation. Some of the hallmarks of fundamentalism, it's anti-intellectual, tends to be anti-intellectual. It tends to be sectarian. So fundamentalists reject public institutions of knowledge in various areas, can be very literalistic in its approach, has a sharp distinction between in-group and out-group. It's very sharp binary, tends to treat people from the in-group as intelligent and enlightened, and people from the out-group as unintelligent and unenlightened, maybe foolish, maybe malevolent or wicked. So often there is an imputation to people in the out-group either of malevolence, they're wicked, or of ignorance, right? They don't agree with us simply because they don't know enough, something like that. And so those are some of the hallmarks of fundamentalism. And why that's important is because, ironically, it is because of the very nature of fundamentalism as having a very sharp binary between in and out group. People who are the most inclined to be fundamentalist are typically the least able to see it in themselves because they've adopted a sharp binary between in group and out group. So you will have Christians who talk about all atheism as being a manifestation of rebellion against God, for example, and they can't see their own fundamentalist anti-intellectualism because they've marginalized atheists and other skeptics, non-Christians. And you have atheists, skeptics, naturalists, humanists, whoever, secular humanists, whoever you want, who would talk about Christianity. And if they have a fundamentalist mindset, then they respond in kind. They talk about Christianity or religion generally as being fundamentally irrational, absurd, ridiculous, indefensible. Christianity is buoyed only by maybe a malevolent purpose to take advantage of people and exploit people, and or because people need a security blanket and they're foolish and ignorant, etc. And both sides are engaging in the same kind of binary marginalization of outgroups, which undermines their own ability to see the extent to which they themselves are a fundamentalist and anti-intellectual in their orientation. And just this morning, I came across a couple tweets that perfectly encapsulate this. And interestingly, this is very common on social media because social media rewards engagement. And the best way to get engagement is to get people angry and to play off on their anger and their impulse toward binary otherization. And the people that are most inclined to do that are people with a fundamentalist orientation. And so, what you often get on social media are two fundamentalists, like a Christian and an atheist fundamentalist, knocking heads with one another, each calling the other one foolish, ignorant, malevolent, etc., etc., etc. So I came across this engagement between two Twitter accounts on Twitter this morning, or whatever Elon Musk renamed it. And we're going to take a look at those because I think they just perfectly encapsulate the orientation of a Christian and a reactionary atheistic fundamentalism on social media. Let's take a look. Okay, so first of all, I saw this tweet from a fellow named Godly Action. It got 17,000 likes. And here's what he says. The Holy Bible, 1,500 years, 66 books, 36 authors, zero contradictions. So he's appealing tacitly here to an argument for the truth of Christianity and specifically the divine authorship of the Bible, I take it, through the unanimity of the text and the absence of contradiction within the text. Now, the first thing he says there, 1,500 years. And well, so the Gospel of John, maybe Second Peter, the Gospel of John written end of the first century. Second Peter could have been written in the early second century. Sorry, but it's good. There's reasonable evidence that Second Peter is a pseudepigraphic. So anyway, you're looking at about 100, 80, 100. So he's saying from, I don't know if he would accept that dating, I'm guessing not, but certainly he would probably accept the Gospel of John written in the 90s. So from that time, you're going back, he's saying the Bible started being written around 1400 BC, I guess, or BCE. And that's uh, interesting. What that tells me is that this fellow is accepting kind of a fundamentalist approach to understanding biblical authorship, thinking that Moses wrote the Torah, etc. So fine, that's what he thinks. Uh, this is not, of course, a view widely accepted in critical scholarship, which is, of course, the sign of the first hallmark of fundamentalism, or one hallmark is to reject academic or scholarly consensus opinion on an issue, such as that Moses didn't write the Torah. And then he says 66 books. In other words, he's saying he's a Protestant here. He's not a Catholic, he's not Orthodox, which have different numbers of canon. And what is interesting there is there's no acknowledgement here that there are different accounts of canon, that Catholics have a different canonical list, that Orthodox have a different canonical list, that the Coptic Church, the Armenian Church have different canonical lists. Just a recognition of the Protestant canonical list and a dismissal of all the others. So that's one way that you get rid of disagreement is by pretending it doesn't exist. Then he says 36 authors as if there's no question about the authorship of any of these texts, which of course is a huge red flag. And again, a rejection of scholarly opinion and the complexity of the origin and nature and textual history of these various documents. And then he says this, he drops the bomb, zero contradictions. It doesn't explain what he means by that. Zero contradictions by what measure? But I mean, it's just a wildly indefensible claim for anybody who spent any time reading the Bible carefully. So, what we have here is kind of nothing more than a fundamentalist Protestant saber rattling about their personal convictions, exhibiting the dismissal for outgroup opinions, including intellectual consensus opinions, and just doubling down on their views without any critical engagement with the actual evidence. Classic fundamentalism from a Protestant perspective or a Protestant lens. So then along comes Maximum Atheist. And I'm going to say this is a Twitter account that never ceases or never disappoints. If you want a fundamentalist atheist presentation, you can get it here. And if you're going to call yourself maximum anything, I'm going to tend to think you're a bit of a fanatic about the issue. I love dogs. I guess you could say I'm a maximum dog lover. What that kind of means is a bit of a red flag that I'm a little bit crazy about dogs. if you call yourself a maximum atheist, well, if you're like a maximum Trump supporter, right? What does that evoke in your mind? So, maximum atheist, you can kind of get a sense there's a bit of fanaticism here, which is going to line up with fundamentalism. Now, he takes issue in particular with the claim about an absence of contradictions, and he says that's funny. Well, I don't know, funny, but I agree that it's indefensible to claim that there are no contradictions in the Bible. But look at the way that he goes about this. He sets up a table. Now, what's interesting is that Protestant fundamentalists love tables. I remember, for example, the old worldview courses that used to, maybe they still are very popular in fundamentalist Christian subculture, where you teach like about all the worldviews, and you'd have like a chart, often from you develop from somebody like the universe next door, not Ron Sider, sorry, James Sire. So a little table of the all the major worldviews, and then what is their worldview on authority, the human problem, the response to the problem, ultimate nature of existence, the afterlife, and you just have a little chart that would tell you what like all the major belief systems of the world believe about all of these issues. And those charts are laughable. With respect, I don't mean to be condescending or dismissive here, but they are laughable in terms of telling you what people actually believe with any degree of nuance and charity and complexity. All they do really is give people overconfidence in thinking they know what other people believe and that what other people believe can be easily dismissed. And it's just very unfortunate, very harmful in terms of nuanced intellectual formation. You get something similar here when Maximum Atheist produces this chart. And then what's interesting is Maximum Atheist, the way that Maximum Atheist seeks to establish contradiction in the Bible is by citing Bible verses with no context and with no recognition of any of the complexities of interpretation or how they've been interpreted or appropriated within the theological tradition. So Exodus 25, God is jealous. God is jealous. Proverbs 6:34, God is void of jealousy, contradiction. And you go on down the list, and now you've established contradiction. Now, it's not that a list like this is utterly without merit. It can be a launching point for an exploration of greater theological nuance and complexity, which could challenge godly actions in defensible claim that there are no contradictions. The problem is that Maximum Atheist presents this simplistic chart with a very naive, flat-footed, and atomistic and reductionistic hermeneutic or interpretation, presents it with a sense of an air of finality. It's not like, hey, let's begin to question how we think about the Bible and how it is interpreted and how it has been interpreted throughout the Judeo-Christian traditions. But rather, it's like nothing more to see here. This is indefensible. Look at all these contradictions. And what that does is it shows that fundamentalists, whether they're Christian or atheist, they have a similar reductionistic and atomistic and ahistorical approach to the Bible and theological method. And that's why they end up debating with one another ad nauseum online because they share similar presuppositions in terms of their fundamentalist orientation. As I like to say, same root, different fruit. They are both fundamentalists, but they express it in different ways. One in terms of a devotion, let's say, ostensibly to Christianity, the other in an ostensible commitment to a naturalistic atheism or something like that. But they're more similar to one another than either would ever acknowledge or be able to recognize. And so it's so important for each one of us to recognize how fundamentalism is not simply a Christian thing or a religious thing. Fundamentalism is a basic orientation we can take to just about anything we believe. And the more that you are fundamentalist, again, the less able you likely are to recognize it in yourself.